There are some encounters that don't need introductions, don't need promises, and don't even need a reason. It's just that when this person appears, Libra suddenly realizes they've been standing still for a very long time. And then, a soft breeze passes quietly through the mind. Not strong, not loud, but just enough to stir parts of you you once believed had fallen asleep. This person doesn't enter your life in a rush. They arrive slowly, as if they already knew that moving any faster would cause them to miss something important. Libra may not say it out loud, but deep down, you know. This isn't someone who comes to fill a void, and it isn't someone who makes your heart race with temporary emotion. Their energy carries a rare kind of calm, like a warm, golden lamp in a quiet room at the end of a long day. There's no pressure to prove anything here. No feeling that you need to become a different version of yourself. Only a presence that feels complete, real, and safe. Enough for you to finally exhale without having to explain why. Maybe Libra once believed they had grown used to meeting people only to part ways again, used to a heart that had to quietly mend itself after every moment of hope. But this time is different. Not because this person is perfect, but because you no longer have to try so hard to understand them. Everything moves at a natural rhythm, like two streams that have been flowing in the same direction for a long time, only now meeting at the very same bend in the river. You notice that in their eyes, there is no shallow curiosity. There is listening, a rare kind of listening. The kind where no one is waiting for their turn to speak, but truly wants to understand what's being shared. And that awakens something in Libra that feels both old and new at the same time. The feeling of being seen. Not the surface version of you, but the real person beneath all the weighing, all the compromising, all the moments you chose silence just to keep the peace. There is a very small moment, maybe just an offhand sentence, a fleeting smile, or a silence that doesn't need to be filled. And yet, that moment makes something clear. You don't need to stay on guard. You don't need to guess where this is going. You don't need to question whether you're giving too much. Everything settles exactly where it belongs. And so do you. Libra has walked a long road learning how to trust themselves again, trusting that intuition isn't wrong, trusting that gentleness is not weakness, trusting that you deserve a relationship where balance doesn't require constant effort. And when this person appears, all of those lessons quietly connect, like the final pieces of a puzzle falling into place. You may not have a name for this yet, and you don't need one. Just know that this time, your heart isn't running ahead of your mind, and it isn't closing in fear either. It opens just enough, slowly, clearly, as if you're stepping into a new space where the light doesn't blind you, but spreads gently, bright enough to show the path ahead. And in that space, Libra begins to understand something important. Some things don't come to test how much more you can endure. They come to remind you that after everything, you have always been worthy of what is honest, steady, and built to last. And as that thought gently settles, Libra suddenly realizes they are no longer standing at the starting point of their old years. The road behind them was never short, and it was never easy. There were days when you wondered why you were always the one who had to understand more, give more, and protect more. There were very long nights when you stayed silent, not because you had nothing to say, but because you had already said too much to yourself. Unanswered questions, quiet moments of reassurance, telling yourself that everything would be okay, even while the weight of exhaustion still lived inside your chest. Libra has walked through relationships that taught you how to stand upright while everything inside was shaking. You learned how to hold yourself when no one else had the patience to stay. You learned how to tell the difference between real love and emotional dependence disguised as connection. Each time, you may not have noticed it right away, but an old layer slowly fell away. An innocent belief quietly stepped aside, making room for a gentler kind of clarity. This person has been through it too. They don't carry the recklessness of rushed promises. They don't step forward looking to be rescued or completed. In their eyes are traces of the roads they've walked, of the times they sat with themselves, facing emptiness without trying to fill it with another person. They learned how to stand firmly on their own 2 feet, even when no one was holding their hand. And that is exactly what makes their presence feel different. When two people who have endured long enough finally meet, everything becomes quieter. There's no need to prove worth, no fear of being left behind, only a silent recognition that both have passed the lessons they needed, so the same mistakes no longer have to repeat themselves. Old relationships, even the ones that left marks, are no longer viewed with regret. They are placed back where they belong, like milestones that have completed their purpose. Libra begins to understand that what once caused pain was never meant to weaken you. It was meant to teach you how to choose, who gets access to your inner world, when to open the door, when to keep a sacred distance. You no longer give your energy unconsciously. You no longer confuse giving with draining yourself empty. And when this person appears, there is no need to be guarded, no urge to rush forward. Everything moves at the pace of mutual respect. Something unusual happens. Neither of you needs to talk much about what was lost. No explanations, no justification. Those experiences are already woven into the way you listen, the way you choose silence at the right moment, the way you no longer rush to judge. That shared depth creates a different kind of space, a space where connection is not built on promises, but on consistent presence. And there, Libra no longer asks whether they are loving too much. You simply know that this time, your heart is resting in a rare state of peace, a state where you don't have to strain to keep balance, because everything is naturally finding its center, as if after all the uneven roads, both of you are finally ready to keep moving forward, not to test each other again, but to step together into a slower rhythm of life, deeper, more grounded, and far more real. And within that slower rhythm of life, Libra begins to clearly sense that something else is unfolding. There is no longer the urge to look back, no longer the habit of asking why things once fell apart. Old memories don't disappear, but they no longer feel heavy. They rest quietly, like pages of a book that have already been folded closed, with no need to be reread again. This person looks at Libra in a way that feels unfamiliar, not with pity, not with curiosity, but with understanding. They understand that what was once unfinished was not your fault, and not fate playing a cruel game. It was simply that, at the time, neither side was ready to hold what they truly wanted. And realizing that doesn't carry bitterness. It carries relief. There is a very still moment when Libra realizes there is no longer a need to explain past mistakes, no need to retell the moments that once made the heart feel heavy. This person doesn't ask to reopen wounds. They ask because they want to understand the road you've walked. And within that listening, one thing becomes very clear. Without the old turning points, without the moments that once felt like losing direction, the two of you could not be standing here now with this kind of calm. The past, in its own quiet way, returns to where it belongs. No longer something pulling you backward, but a steady foundation for the present. Libra no longer guards against history repeating itself. This time, you enter this connection with open eyes, a clear heart, and boundaries built from respect, not fear. This person doesn't see what came before as bad luck. They see it as necessary signs, detours that had to happen so they could learn when to stop, how to choose the right person at the right time. And when they speak of you, there is no regret for what was lost, only gratitude for what led the way. You are not a replacement for the past. You are the result of two people who have traveled far enough to stop repeating the same story. Libra begins to feel a very gentle kind of closure. Not a door being shut forcefully, but one closing softly, like when the wind settles and a room returns to stillness. There is no more noise from unanswered questions, no familiar anxiety lingering in the air, only the quiet knowing that a cycle has fulfilled its purpose and doesn't need to be carried into this next part of the journey. In this new space, everything feels clearer. You don't need to become someone else to avoid past mistakes, because you are no longer who you once were, and neither is the person beside you. You meet at the crossing point of maturity, a place where old lessons are no longer burdens, but proof that both of you are ready to move forward, not with the fear of repeating the past, but with a quiet trust in a journey that is entirely new. And it's within that quiet trust that everything begins to shift. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a clear inner knowing that this time you are not entering this relationship with empty hands. You arrive carrying everything you've built for yourself after long years of standing back up, healing on your own, and learning how to love yourself in a more mature way. There is a calm strength in your eyes, in your voice, in the way you show up. Not the kind of strength that comes from defense, but the strength of someone who knows who they are and no longer needs to prove it to anyone. The other person feels the same. They are not searching for a relationship to fill what is missing. They don't come with the expectation that you will become the only place of refuge for their emptiness. Between the two of you, there is no sense of rescuing one another. No one arrives to carry the weight of the other's life. There are simply two independent journeys, whole in their own way, meeting at the exact moment when both are ready to share, not to depend. For Pisces, this feels very different. In the past, you may have loved through intuition so powerful that you forgot your own boundaries. You were used to dissolving, to giving, until you could no longer tell where your emotions ended and someone else's began. But this time, there is a subtle balance. You are still gentle, still deep, still feeling everything with an open heart. Yet you no longer lose yourself in the process. Your worth is not measured by how much you can endure or how much you are willing to sacrifice. Your worth lives in knowing what you deserve, and the person in front of you recognizes that. They don't try to take your light, and they are not overwhelmed by it. They stand beside you as an equal point of support, where stability doesn't come from control, but from mutual respect. There are conversations that pass by gently, where no one needs to perform or try to be interesting. There are silences that don't need to be filled, yet still feel warm enough for both of you to feel safe. You begin to understand that this peace is not boredom. It is the result of two people who have traveled far enough within themselves to no longer crave false intensity. It is a rhythm of life where you can breathe evenly, where emotions don't sweep you away, but lift you instead. Pisces senses that this relationship does not make you smaller. It doesn't ask you to shrink yourself to fit someone else's frame. Instead, it allows you to expand, slowly, safely. You are free to be yourself in every shade you carry, without fear of being misunderstood, without fear of being abandoned, simply because you are deep, because you are real. And within that balance, something very beautiful is taking shape. Not a grand promise, but the feeling that life can be built day by day through simple, consistent choices. You no longer look to love as an escape, but as a conscious decision. The decision to stay, to nurture something together, to not turn away when things are imperfect. Here, you begin to see clearly that fullness doesn't come from adding another person, but from becoming someone who no longer abandons themselves. And when two whole people choose one another, the relationship stops being a burden or a test. It becomes a space where both can continue to grow, gently, slowly, and deeply, in a way that only those who have been through a great deal can truly appreciate. And because you've been through so much, Libra begins to feel a quiet kind of closure. Not loud, not dramatic, no tears, no bold declarations. Just an ordinary morning when you suddenly realize you're no longer interested in shallow connections. Your heart no longer responds to easy words. You're no longer pulled in by the brief feeling of being noticed. The things that once felt like love now look more like passing shadows, not strong enough to stay. Libra understands that some relationships have already fulfilled their purpose. They taught you what it feels like to be wanted, to be chosen, to be needed, if only for a moment. But they also took a great deal of energy, leaving behind emptiness once the emotion faded. And this time, you no longer want to repeat that cycle. Not because you're afraid of pain, but because you've learned to value the peace you worked so hard to build. This person enters your life at the exact moment you stopped searching. They don't come rushing in. They don't use your loneliness as something to lean on. Between the two of you, there are no familiar emotional games. No guessing where you stand in someone else's heart today. No urge to hold on tightly out of fear of loss. Everything unfolds with a rare sense of balance, where both of you are clear enough not to give too much before understanding, and honest enough not to hold back once you do. Libra no longer loves to fill a void. You don't need someone to prove that you're still desirable, still wanted. You don't enter this relationship because you're afraid of being alone. Being alone no longer frightens you. It has become a space where you can listen to yourself, where you know what you need and what you no longer do. And because of that, when you choose to stay with this person, it's a clear choice. Not driven by lack, not driven by fear. The other person carries the same clarity. They don't rush to claim your heart. They don't demand that you open every door at once. There is a quiet respect in the way they approach you, as if they understand that lasting things are never built in haste. They accept the pace. They observe. They allow everything to reveal itself in time. And that gives Libra a sense of safety that feels entirely new. You realize that this safety doesn't come from promises. It comes from consistent actions, from someone being there when it matters, listening when you're silent, not disappearing when emotions grow complex. There are no manufactured highs, but there is no cold distance either. Just a steady flow where trust is built slowly, piece by piece, never rushed, never delayed. In that space, old ways of loving naturally fall behind. They don't need to be rejected or judged. They simply no longer fit the person you've become. And when Libra looks back, there is no regret. Only a quiet gratitude that you were brave enough to say goodbye to connections that no longer deserved your heart. Now, this connection stands here without needing to prove anything grand. It exists through genuine presence, through a rhythm that is slow, yet steady. And within that stillness, Libra begins to feel something true. Some relationships don't need noise to be deep. They don't need intensity to last. They only need to be real, clear, and patient enough to stay, day by day, in the most natural way. And within that very natural patience, another feeling slowly begins to appear, quiet yet steady, like the first light of morning. Libra starts to realize that some connections don't need to be named to already carry the shape of something lasting. Not because promises are spoken out loud, but because every small detail leans gently toward the future. The way this person listens when you talk about everyday things, the way they pause before making decisions that affect the two of you, the way they don't ask where this is going, but move as if the path is already clear. Libra feels a sense of safety in simple moments. Not in dramatic highs, but in quiet evenings where the two of you can sit side by side without needing to do anything special. There are very ordinary days, and yet it's that ordinariness that carries the feeling of home. You no longer feel the need to hold balance by force. Balance appears on its own when both understand that love is not a tug of war, but a shared direction toward the same rhythm of life. This person doesn't talk much about the future, yet the future is present in the way they live right now. In their steadiness is a clear message. They didn't come to see how long things might last. They came with the intention to build, slowly, through consistency. And that reaches Libra deeply, because you've grown tired of beautiful words that carry no weight. This time, you see yourself placed within a larger picture, not as a passing emotional moment, but as part of a real life being shaped day by day. There are moments when Libra realizes you no longer ask the familiar question, is this real? You don't check, you don't measure. Instead, there's a strange sense of ease, like stepping into a room that has already been arranged for you. So fitting that you simply know you belong there. Not because it's perfect, but because it allows you to live at your own pace. This connection doesn't take away your freedom. On the contrary, it opens a space for you to breathe deeper, move slower, and trust more. You no longer love from the fear that if you don't hold on tightly, everything will disappear. You love through full presence, because you know this person is doing the same. Two independent people, strong enough to stand alone, choosing to walk together not from lack, but from desire. Libra begins to think about very real things, shared mornings, simple meals, plans that don't need to be grand, yet still make life feel like it's being built. This person appears in those thoughts, naturally, without force. And that's when you understand this is no longer a fleeting emotion. This is the feeling of walking the same road, where every step carries meaning. Within that calm, something very beautiful is forming. Not a formal promise, but a trust nurtured day by day. A trust that even when things aren't perfect, both choose to turn toward each other. A trust that love doesn't need to be proven through excessive sacrifice, but through steady presence. And when Libra sits quietly with themselves, you realize you're no longer afraid of big words, no longer afraid of closeness, no longer afraid of commitment. Because now you understand that commitment isn't losing yourself. It's expanding your life to consciously and respectfully make room for another. In this very gentle flow, everything seems to settle, making space for something deeper. A place where love is not just felt, but lived, day by day, moment by moment, with the quiet steadiness of two people who have chosen each other. And within that quiet steadiness, something important begins to reveal itself. Libra realizes that their intuition has changed. It is no longer an anxious whisper that once made you doubt yourself. It is a clear, bright awareness that arrives naturally, without force. You no longer love by lowering yourself just to keep someone close. You no longer call endurance understanding or silence compassion. This new intuition doesn't push you forward. It doesn't pull you faster than your own heartbeat. It reminds you to pause at the right moment, to listen to what you feel, and to honor the boundaries built through years of lived experience. Libra begins to see clearly that boundaries don't create distance. They create safety. You no longer feel guilty for saying no. You no longer explain yourself endlessly for needing time, space, and consistency. Each time you choose honesty with yourself, your intuition sharpens, as if a thin layer of fog has lifted, revealing a path that was always there. You understand now that love is not a trade. It is a choice. The choice to stay when something is healthy. The choice to step back when it is necessary. And that clarity creates a very different kind of attraction. This person senses that you are not easily grasped, yet you are not distant. You don't shut the door, but you don't throw it wide open either. There is a quiet self-respect in the way you show up, one that can't be reached with shallow gestures or easy words. They understand that if they want to come closer, they must move with sincerity, not to test their luck, but to be worthy. Respect appears even before emotions are named. It lives in the way they listen to you fully, in how they don't cross the boundaries you've set, in the patience they show when you need more time. There is no pressure to rush, no power games. You are never placed in a position where you must prove your worth. That worth is already visible in your calm presence, in the way you don't get pulled into familiar emotional highs. Libra feels something very different than before. You no longer use sacrifice to buy someone's presence. You no longer make yourself smaller to keep the peace. And strangely, it's precisely when you stand firm like this that the other person wants to step closer. Not because they fear losing you, but because they genuinely value you. They want to pursue you in the right way, through consistent action, through steady presence, by placing you in a position of priority without you ever having to ask. There are very quiet moments when you realize you no longer need to remind yourself to be careful. Your intuition is working beautifully. It doesn't sound alarms. It doesn't rush you. It simply stays there, like a soft light, bright enough to show you each step you're taking and each step they are taking too. And in that light, you see seriousness arrive sooner than expected. Not a heavy seriousness, but clarity. Clarity of intention, clarity of choice. Libra understands that the respect you give yourself is being reflected back with precision. You no longer attract relationships that come to test your boundaries. You attract those who are willing to honor them. And this is not by chance. It is the result of every time you chose to listen to intuition instead of fear, to choose truth instead of compromise, to choose long-term values over temporary emotion. In this gentle flow, you don't need to do anything more to be chosen. You only need to keep being yourself, with the clarity, the softness, and the steadiness forged through time. And when the other person slows their steps to walk beside you, not because they are held back, but because they want to stay, you know your intuition has led you to the right place. A place where love does not require self-sacrifice to survive. A place where love begins with deep respect and mature presence from both sides. And as that current, carries you to its deepest point of stillness. Libra suddenly realizes that the final message is not complicated at all. It doesn't arrive as advice about what to do next, and it isn't a warning telling you to stay guarded. It arrives softly, like a quiet permission you may have been waiting for a very long time. Permission to stop rushing. Permission to let things unfold in their own natural rhythm. Permission to trust the sense of peace that is already here instead of doubting it because of what once happened. Libra has grown used to weighing everything carefully, used to asking whether this feeling will last, whether this path is truly safe. But this time, you no longer feel the need to constantly check. Nothing tightens your chest. Nothing asks you to read between invisible lines. You don't have to guess what the other person is thinking. You don't worry that silence means something is wrong. Clarity comes through a sense of ease in the body, through the feeling that you can be yourself without being drained. There is a simple truth Libra begins to see. When something is real, it doesn't keep you awake at night. It doesn't make you analyze every small detail looking for hidden meaning. It doesn't require you to convince yourself that you are happy. Truth carries a very recognizable calm, like still water after a long stretch of waves. You no longer have to swim upstream to hold on to what you have. You only need to rise and allow yourself to be supported. This message doesn't tell you to believe blindly, and it doesn't ask you to place your entire heart in someone else's hands. It simply reminds you that after everything you've lived through, you are now mature enough to tell the difference between fear and intuition. If things feel natural, if you are not forcing yourself to stay balanced, if opening your heart no longer feels like a risk that guarantees pain, then it's very possible you are standing in front of something real. Libra is allowed to receive that without making it difficult. You are allowed to believe that the years of healing were not meant to help you endure more, but to teach you how to receive what you deserve, to receive care without conditions, to receive presence that is consistent, to receive a relationship where you don't have to shrink to fit. And as you stand here now, between clarity and gentleness, between strong boundaries and a heart that remains open, something very beautiful is taking place. You are no longer chasing love, and you are no longer closed to it. You are standing still, steady enough for what truly fits to find its way to you. Not to test you again, but to walk with you along a path where both of you are free to be yourselves. And if there is one thing to carry with you as this story settles, it is permission. Permission to trust peace. Permission to receive goodness without guilt. Permission to let life open in the gentlest way. Because very possibly, Libra, this time there is no need to doubt. This time, you are not just touching love. You are stepping into a truth deep enough, steady enough to stay.